Last video I was talking quite a bit. Hopefully I didn't come off as being uneducated or slurred my words around, or that I couldn't construct a sentence or a correct sentence.
You B?
Yeah, I'm B.
Know the way in? Yeah, but shh.
Anything interesting happen?
Since we are here,
No one in?
well,
Yeah, hopefully in my last video I was actually able to formulate a sentence correctly or coherently. Not sure, sometimes I just get really into what I wanted to say and I kind of repeat myself, I think, sometimes, or I can ramble on forever. So hopefully my last stream that automatically uploaded to YouTube, and I was actually coherent in my sentences, and they were formulated and structured in a way that actually made sense, and like I said, I was coherent. Just because, and I can have a tendency to focus on rambling, or kind of, I guess, try and get the message across clearly, but I do it in like multiple ways that still kind of have the same point or concept behind it, so hopefully that ramble wasn't too much. I just like games a lot, and I'm very passionate about video games. So, when it comes to video games, I really don't mind speaking my mind on what I think about a video game. Yeah, and I do want this game to do well. Because I do like this game. I think overall it's a good game. Despite the bugs, glitches, and the corrupt data after it being saved or doing too many things that exceeds over that limit data save size. So despite those issues, it's a fun game that I enjoy.
Come on! I swear I won't completely kill you.
Aww. Oh, this guy has some health on him. Oh!
What have you done?
Headshot. Ooh, more guys over there. Slice it up. Trying to make this guy all stealthy and like ninja style. A lot of blades, a lot of stealth. Damage. This is probably a good one.
I'll piss on your fucking grave! coming. Check it.
Right.
Come on, I'll give you a kiss. You ain't seen what these lips can do. Camera corridor. Avoid.
It even worked. Said this place was abandoned years ago.
Now it is not. Animals fix their eyes.
Wait, who is that?
Who you think? The rank we want try to invade you. With the extra eyes we give you, it is fine for now.
So, he knows I'm here.
Hunting we will go, little piggy.
Shit. Alright, time to blade it. Yeah, so I think on my last video I kind of ranted on, kind of maybe said the same points that I was trying to get at multiple times, probably 3 or 4 times. Only because, like I said, I'm very passionate about video games, I really enjoy video games, and
This is what we fought for.
when I see the direction that video games have gone in when it comes to the release of video games, it's just ridiculous how often they don't really seem to care about making sure their game runs good, that it's optimized, that it runs smoothly before they release the game. Honestly, like, I remember a time before when the game was released and there was like never any patches that they had to do, there was never any bugs or glitches, and the game was thoroughly looked at and examined before they released the game. Because back then I guess they really couldn't patch it after the game was released, so they really didn't have a choice to make sure that the game came out and it came out correctly and it ran appropriately and and smoothly. Because like they didn't have what things where they can just patch the game after it was released. Everything that they had to do was in the studio, and it can only do they can only be done before release. So I don't know if behind whoever is making these games, companies, developers, whoever, is just becoming lazy and seem to just always, I don't know, it seems like games have been taking that direction, where it's like, instead of making sure the game runs correctly, appropriately, and smoothly before they release the game, now it's like they seem to games seem to be taking a direction now where they release the game somewhat broken, somewhat buggy and glitchy, and then they fix it after the game's released with patches. And like, just seeing in comparison to the way games were developed and published and produced and released to stores, in comparison to how games are released now, are very contrary to each other, and the methods were very different. Because I'm like close to my 40s now, and when I was playing games when I was in my 20s, but and then like 19 95, 99, 2009. Like, it really did seem like games, before they released the games, everything they could do can only be done at studio. So they had to go through the bugs and the glitches and the frame drops and all that stuff. Make sure the game didn't have any of that before the game was released, because they didn't have the ability to patch the game after it was released. And now it's like games are being pressured to meet a deadline to get the games out as quickly as possible, despite the fact that sometimes they know that there are these bugs and glitches and frame rate drops. Just came out there to make the revenue, and then patch it later. So it's kind of irritating, and I know that PlayStation Store kind of took this game off the market and kind of wrote a message to PlayStation users that, you know, they're not going to put games on their system anymore that's going to come out in a broken state, as Cyberpunk did, because it's just not really their policy, and their policy is making sure that they have games on their store, because they feel like they're accountable. They're responsible for making sure, you know, that the games that they have on their store is games that aren't broken, but these consumers are actually putting their hard-earned work money into a game that actually runs, you know, incorrectly. You know, and that they're not selling broken, you know, and that they're not selling broken items. And you can argue the fact, like, well, it's not a big deal because these companies have the ability to release patches after the game's release. But I just like what I guess Sony's doing, because it's saying we have a standard, you know, we want, and our standard is, you know, and if we're gonna purchase stuff on our store, we want your shit, you know, and we want your stuff not to be broken. You know, we want our consumers to be happy with what the product that they buy, and that the product that they do get is actually running functionally and apparently accordingly to the way it should be function, or how it should run functionally. So I kind of like this. I kind of like what Sony did there when they took down Cyberpunk, because it was just unplayable and too broken to play. And you know, and like, I don't mind the patches, but I think video game companies and so forth need to kind of give more focus on getting back to a state where, you know, and they release the game, they're going to release it with absolutely minimal, I mean minute glitches or bugs. And then when I say minute, like, I mean minute to the point where there's not really any, and if there is, it's very insignificant and can be fixed with, you know, in a very small patch. Not this idea of releasing a game that needs, you know, in like 17 gigabytes of patches, you know, and or 30 or 40 gigabytes of patches, because of how broken the game is. And I like the principles and standards that Sony is trying to apply to studio companies of video games and developers. So like I said, I know they can fix it and release patches after the game's release, but it's the principle more so than anything. You know, and people and consumers, when they buy something, they don't buy something that's broken. You know, when they go out and buy something, they expect it to be running appropriately to its standards of what it's capable of performing at. I'm gonna die, yeah, I'm gonna die. So I understand why Sony did that. Kind of understand how it hurts video game companies at risk now. It's because they can't be, and lazy and try and earn their income and their money by and releasing broken stuff. And the thing is, like, I don't see how video game companies can get away with that anymore. You know, just because the investors want to make their money. Like, you don't go to a store and then buy, like, rotten milk, or you don't go to a store and buy a broken case or a broken CD, do you? No, you go to a store to buy something that actually has the data on the disc and it's not broken and it's actually functional to its standards of what it should be performing at when it comes to movies, and so, like, how should video games not be held with the same accountability And I think, what Sony did is saying, hey, you need to hold yourself at a certain accountability for your claims of what you're stating about your performance of your items or what you're selling. And it's not fair to the consumers or the buyers to get something that, are felt like they're misled, or, to the point where it's like the money that they gave you is, and they're getting what they expect from whatever it is or the item you're selling, and that it performs accordingly to what the standards are of what your claims of its performance can be. So, I'm kind of glad, Sony's kind of making a standard like that, and setting those kind of principles that they just can't get away with, releasing whatever they want when they want, just to make revenue, even despite the fact that they're selling something that's broken or doesn't function accordingly to what it should be running at or what it's supposed to be capable of its performance. It's just frustrating. With Anthem, even Marvel's Avengers was slightly disappointing at the beginning because of the shit that was going on with bugs and glitches. Cyberpunk, I love the game, but it's been disappointing with it. Luckily, it hasn't affected me too much, but the thing is, I know it's actually made it where it's been unplayable, Cyberpunk, for some people, which is very unfortunate for them. Like I said, fortunately, the amount of bugs and glitches that I've seen has hindered the game, but has not hindered it to the point where I can't play it at all. Is it frustrating with the glitches I've seen? Yes. Does it take me away from enjoying the game at times? Yes, it definitely does. But I'm kind of still glad, though, despite the fact how frustrating and annoying it is and how disappointing it has made me with the bugs and glitches and the frame rate drops every time I go into a new area, and then the pixels or the texture isn't loaded up as soon as I enter that new area, and I have to wait a few minutes or a few seconds to actually see that texture and pixels loaded into whatever I'm viewing on my screen. It's very irritating, and it does take away from the enjoyment of the game with those other bugs and glitches that I mentioned in my other videos. But the thing is it still hasn't hindered me completely from being able to play the game. And yes, I still enjoy it, but I would enjoy it a lot more if it didn't have these frame rate drops every time I enter a new area, where visually I am actually not seeing the textures or pixels loaded up with whatever I'm looking at through my character, or with the other bugs and glitches. And yes, it frustrates me. It takes away from the enjoyment, and it's something that I don't expect to see in the game. But at least it hasn't hindered the game from me from stopping. At least that has not hindered me from being able to play the game. I would enjoy it a lot more if those issues weren't in the game, though. I think anybody would. And like I said, I'm glad that Sony is kind of putting that policy in, where it's like if you're going to put a game on their store or their market, they want a game to actually be functional accordingly to and its capability of its performance, and that they're not going to be putting stuff on their game on their stores anymore that's going to be broken and unoptimal to play. I'm sure they'll fix it, though. It's just stupid because there's just so different to the contrast of the way games were developed and released for sale in comparison to how games are released for sale these days. It's like I said back then, they would never ever be able to have the luxury of dispatching the game after it was released. Anything that had bugs and glitches, they had to fix before release at the studio, because they didn't have the internet that kind of allowed them to have access to the game outside of their studio to patch it. It's a nice thing that companies can do that now, but it's also getting to a point where they're abusing it. And what I mean by they're abusing that now is instead of having a game released with minimal bugs and glitches and frame rate drops, and it's becoming more significantly an issue over the years. And honestly, in my opinion, it's just getting worse and worse and worse every single year, because they're more concerned about making profit than they are giving their customers a good, fun, and memorable experience with the product of what they're selling when it comes to their games. And I guess I'll focus on the revenue and the income and the profits. It's like now they've just kind of made it worse because they're willing to throw out a game now with sometimes substantial glitches, bugs, and frame rates drops because they know that we can just patch it in a hot patch in a couple of months or in a couple of weeks, and we can still make our profit and from releasing the game because we can patch it and fix it later on and within a certain time frame. And I don't, it's just like I said, now companies seem to just be abusing that more and more, and it's getting significantly worse every single year. And the fact that Sony is saying, okay, we're not putting up with this anymore. You want to put something on our stores, you want us to be that middleman to sell one of your products, and make sure it's actually functional and it's actually and conform to the standards of what it's capable of performing at, and not give us this broken stuff on our games. And not give us broken stuff on our stores to sell to people. And I think what that's going to do is going to make studios like it not, not pull that crap anymore. Of saying, well, we know the game is broken, we know there's bugs, we know there's glitches, and we're just going to sell it and fix it up in a hot patch in a couple of weeks or months. I kind of like what Sony's doing because, I think that's going to stop that from happening. Because it's just becoming significantly worse every year. Like I said, I remember back then when freaking games were released, they didn't have that ability to have access to the game outside of the company because of having the internet around or accessibly available to them to fix the game outside of their company after it was released with patches. Before, they had to make sure the game at the studio ran the way it was supposed to or intended to run, and then release the game with no bugs and glitches, and that everything was examined and thoroughly analyzed and looked through before they released the game, because they didn't have the ability to just simply hot patch it after the game was released. And the fact that game companies can do that now, it seems like they do it more and more these years, for the last couple of years, just so they can make sure they can make their revenue or their profit, their financial profit. And whether it's the investors, whether it's the studios, whether it's developers, whoever it is, it's just, like I said, it's getting more to the point where it's being abused now. And games these days, for the last couple of years, it's becoming more and more out in a broken state. And I know games, because of how advanced graphics and how much pixels you can put in detail you can put in video games now. I understand that because of the more pixels and the more details you can put within a game, and the fact that games have so much more room to put that data on, that it takes a lot longer now for games to be in development in comparison to games when it was in the 2D era, like Super Mario and stuff like that. I understand that, in comparison to this game and that game, the amount of development is significantly different from each other, and that now, because of the amount of pixels, the amount of detail, the amount of data you can fit on a disc, and there's development is much more, how can I say this? Development, it takes a lot more work because of those reasons. And it's a lot more complex when it comes to design video games now because of those reasons, that it takes a lot longer for games to be developed, and I understand that. But they just need to stop releasing games in such a state where it's they rely on patches to fix them. Because it's just going to get to the point where instead of it being in a 4 gigabyte patch one of these days, it's going to be like a 50 gigabyte patch, 100 gigabyte patch, the way it's been going. I think A lot of people are just tired of like getting a game that's broken and then all of a sudden they have to wait for weeks or months to actually get the game working the way it's supposed to be working, or originally it was intended to work when it comes to its performance. And I think people are just tired of getting games and that are broken, and then they have to wait for all these patches. And these patches are getting more and more freaking ridiculous when it comes to the amount of data that these patches are being released at. Like, and that's what I mean. Like, it's just getting abused now because like freaking 17 gigabytes and that was like roughly around 20 gigabytes, well less. But then, just with this game alone, they had like 2 hot patches within like the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks or from this date to when it was released. They've had 2 hot patches or patches. I don't know what's the definition between patch and hot patch, but the fact is both of those patches were at least 18 gigabytes. So I'm already looking at almost 40 gigabytes alone, just in patches. Like, that's absurd, and I'm sorry, but that's absurd to have that 40 gigabytes of patches. That's almost like half the game alone when it came to the data disk. Seriously, that was literally practically almost half of the amount of data of the data disk. That was like freaking roughly 40, and I'm sure there's still issues with this game, and there's still glitches and bugs and frame rate drops whenever you go into a new area where the detail and the texture and the pixels aren't loaded up by the time as soon as you enter that new area. So there's gonna have to be more patches that they're gonna put in this game. Like, what is that gonna be? Another 17 gigabytes? That would be like 3 17 gigabyte patches. At that point, it's almost the same amount of freaking data for the data disk in the game that you have to install, or more than it. Like, come on, man. Like, this is what I mean. Like, companies are getting ridiculous with this whole patch concept and how they're abusing it more and more throughout the years. Now it's getting worse because games weren't. Oh my god, they need to stop doing that. If they do need to patch it, it should be very minimal. It should be very, very minute. It shouldn't be to the point where you see a patch because it's obviously clear that the game is broken. And if they do give you a patch, it should be very, very minute, very minimal, because it's just something that it's not going to overall change the complete structure or performance of the game, but it's something that's just very small or something that's not extremely noticeable of what they're fixing in the game, or it's because they're adding some extra content to the game. But it should never be the reason why they're actually giving you these patches is because it's obviously clear how broken the game is. I'm good now. I'm sorry. I like this game, I play it a lot, but when I see stuff like this, it just frustrates me, because when I was younger and I was playing games, I have never seen these kind of issues, because games in development would never release a game, because they didn't have the luxury of adding patches, and that before they released the game back then, they actually had to go analyze the game thoroughly and make sure there was no bugs and glitches or frame rate drops, because when they released the game, they didn't have the luxury of fixing it after the game was released with patches. And I remember that day where when I picked up a game, I was excited to get it because I knew I wouldn't be disappointed, because I knew the game ran to the expected performance that was claimed it would be able to run at or perform at. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. Oh, I covered this, Lana. No, I know I'm not the only frustrated one. I'm sure there's other gamers that are frustrated, because even though this game has had these issues for my game, like I said, it hasn't completely hindered me to the point where it has not allowed me to play the game. But it is absolutely irritating and frustrating to see these things in the game, because it shouldn't be happening. But luckily it hasn't completely stopped me from being able to play the game or hinder me from playing the game whatsoever. Unfortunately, there are some people out there where it has stopped them from being able to progress in the game or play the game, and that's completely stopped them and hindered them from playing the game or making any progress in the game, and that is very unfortunate. And and this kind of stuff in video games shouldn't be happening anymore, but they get away with it because they have the luxury of just fixing it up with hot patches. And if people don't like Sony, but wish what they did, take a stance on this, honestly, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse every year. Where and the hot patches are going to be more and more data. Because and they're gonna, because they can get away with it. They have the luxury of just going to fix the game with hot patches or patches of ridiculous sizes of data, because the game is so obviously broken and apparent that it's broken. Instead of these being very minimal, freaking small data patches, because what they're doing with the game is and the things that might have an issue with the game are not noticeable really in the game at all, or it's because they're adding extra content to the game. Not because they're fixing it, because it's apparently obvious that it's broken. That's what these freaking patches should be about, or these freaking, downloading extra data for a game. It shouldn't be because they have to fix the game because it's really simply because it's broken. Yeah, yes, I know studios and developers are always under pressure because of investors and management and all that stuff, but come on, man. This shit shouldn't be happening. People should not be disappointed to get in the game because, these freaking people think that they can just keep abusing the freaking patch crap. Want to make a game, they should make it where it's, or if they do need it, like I said, make a patch, it's very freaking minimal, because whatever they're patching is something that's not obviously apparent in the game, or it's because they're actually adding extra content to the game, whether it's extra DLC, extra characters, extra clothes, extra options for customization, and so forth. Yeah, see right there, what the hell? Like, I had no bullets in the gun, and then instead of actually going through an animation of actually loading the gun, it just automatically appeared that the gun was loaded. There's the example right there of a glitch. And then the other glitches I was talking about, like, it's irritating is whenever I go into a new area, and while I'm actually a few seconds into that area, I'm still waiting for the frame rate to not drop and fucking actually have the textures, the pixels, and the detail in that new area that I walked into right away, or at least by the time I enter it, that this stuff should already be loaded. But by the time I get into that area, it actually still takes me a couple of seconds just to see the detail within the characters or within the environment. Because I'm waiting for it to load in while I'm actually a few seconds already within that new area that I just went into. Like, that's another bug right there that kind of annoys me too. Don't forget, like I mentioned, how like I seem objects inside other objects. You know, and not to mention that I had a very high level character, a couple of high level characters, but I deleted that saved data. It's because apparently it was corrupted, and that kind of annoyed me too. Is because I actually had a couple of characters that were probably at least in the halfway through the game, or maybe a bit more. I'm not too sure how far I was in the game, but they were definitely level wise, at least around 20. Or 19 or something like that, and I had to delete all those characters because of the corrupt data file that was saved. That's kind of a little annoying too. And unlike, once again, this patch was supposed to save the corrupt data save that you get from, I don't know, apparently someone who said on other YouTube channels that is your data gets corrupted when you pick up too many items, or you use the crafting system too often with too many items. Like, freaking because of that, I actually had to like delete my characters, and even though they've put out the second batch, all of a sudden, once again, I got that corrupt save data once again. Oh my god, and then it crashes. This game was so bad for the first day for crashes. I was playing this game for like the most entire day when the game was released. I swear to god, this game would crash on the first day it was released, like every half an hour. Every single half an hour or an hour, it would literally crash on me. I spent a day. This game has been the game, especially on its first initial day of release. This is the only game where I've had to like restart it so frequently. Like, I swear, I'm not kidding. It was every half an hour, every hour roughly, within that time frame that it would crash on me. That I would have to restart the game. Like, the crashes aren't as bad as when the game was first released. But I do notice that once in the very blue moon, there are those still crashes now that do occur. Besides still getting the corrupt SATA data, save game, and then the fact where there's still that frame rate drop whenever I go into a new area, and then the textures and the details aren't loaded in by the time I'm actually within that area for a few seconds. Objects within other objects. There's times where I've seen, you know, like the characters that are supposed to actually follow you to a certain location don't follow you, or when I'm loading in between V's scenarios and then all of a sudden into Johnny Silverhand's scenarios, that somehow there's like some kind of mix up between what scenario I'm on, and those characters don't follow me within Johnny Silverhand's story or V's story into the locations that they're currently supposed to be going or following me into. So yeah, the patches fixed a few things, but they clearly haven't fixed everything. And even though we've had 2 patches so far, they might have fixed some things or a few things, but clearly there's still a lot of patches that need to be in this game, which is just absolutely ridiculous, because like you said, 2 patches already that's come out in this game. It's been at least 17-18 gigabytes of freaking data, which, like I said, is pretty much a little less than half of the data disk game that you have to put in besides the play disc of the game. So it's just getting ridiculous. And this is what I mean by companies are starting to abuse this whole concept of being able to patch their games after the release, instead of, you know, making sure the game's actually running appropriately before release, and actually analyzing the game thoroughly to make sure that there's no bugs and glitches, and that if there is, it's something that they weren't aware of, and it's something that was very minimal or minuscule that, you know, didn't really impact the game whatsoever, and they can fix within with a couple of megabytes. Or with maybe like 1 gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of data. like I said, if there is any like update to a game, it should be because not so much that they're patching the game from like glitches and bugs and frame rate issues. It should be because they're actually adding some extra content to the game, whether it's more content on how you can customize your character, more mission, more romance scenarios, just more content in general. So I just wish games would actually thoroughly check this stuff out instead of using the whole thing, that concept that they can kind of get away with it now in a sense because they can just fix it by patching it after the game's released. That kind of shit's bullshit, and I think people need to start taking a stance on that to some degree. I think it's not bad if, you know, and they're kind of like kept in check about how much, you know, and they should be allowed to get away with it. What I mean by that, if, you know, and games sometimes are going to come out broken, glitchy, a little buggy, fine, that's acceptable, but it shouldn't be to the point as what happened with like Marvel's Avengers or Anthem or Cyberpunk. You know, and like if the game comes out being buggy or glitchy, it should be, like I said, very minuscule, very minimal, not really noticeable, and it's something that is a very small amount of update for data to fix it, because it's really just something that's not really noticeable in the game at all, and it's something that's, you know, and maybe more cosmetic or, you know, just little things like that. Hell, even when I had, what game was it? Oh yeah, Legion, on Watch Dogs Legion. Once again, that game came out with the bug. Freaking, I remember walking down the street, and these people that were wearing dresses, you can actually see their legs go through their dress instead of their dress being on top of their legs when their legs would move. Of course, they fixed that, but once again, that's another example. But see, that's something that's not that bad, you know, and even then that shouldn't have happened in Watch Dogs Legion. It's the fact, like, it's still did. And even though they had to fix it, you know, and the amount that they had to fix and patch was very minuscule. It was very little. Yes, it was noticeable that there was that glitch in the game whenever these the female characters would walk, you'd see their legs go through their skirt. But you know what? Or then it seemed like you couldn't really tell that they were walking at a very far distance with the animation. But you know, and that was something that was just a few things about the game, and not so glaring to the point where everything about the game was buggy and everything about the game was glitchy, you know. And that was like the one or two glitches in Watch Dogs Legions, but that was something that was easy to fix. Well, maybe not easy to fix, but it was something that was quickly resolved and fixed, because the game came out with very minimal, very minuscule, you know, and glitches that weren't, you know, and completely broken. Were not completely making the game broken. Yes, that's what I'm saying. They need games need to be held accountable. Companies need to be held accountable for this, honestly. And I think investors, at the same time, really need to realize just how much work goes into a game. Simply because, like I said, games have so much more data that you can filter on the game when it comes to the amount of room it has for data and information you can put in it within the game. And also the fact, like, now games can also have so much pixels that it can make it so much more detailed, and have those extra little things to detail, that the game just takes a lot longer now in comparison to back then, when like Super Mario Bros. Were around, and you know, you couldn't fit nearly the same amount of detail at all in comparison to now. So I think like people need to realize that games take a long time to develop, and not put so much pressure on a company or developers. And I don't like the fact that there is crunch. I don't like developers going through that crunch. I'm not saying like there shouldn't be any crunch. I don't think developers should get to the point where they should be lazy, but I don't think they should be overworked. I think people need to realize that games, because of what they can do and how much information they can put in a game these days, and how much detail in comparison to what games could have when it came to data and detail before, are substantially large, enormous in comparison. And because of that, there's just so much fine detail, and that they can put in within their games. And because of that, it does take longer than if you were making a game back when Super Nintendo was around. You know, and I bet even like the programming is even more complex now. Just like back then when Super Mario Brothers were around, like you only had like a few commands, parameters that you had to have with the game and the characters on what they can do and what they can't do. Like before, it was you can only jump up and forward, and that was it. You know, it was really the parameters and other small parameters. But now, you know, and it's like you can jump back and jump forward, but you can also go left, you can go right, you know, and so there's just even like the details on the walls, the guns. There's just so much more.
Camera corridor. Avoid it.
It even worked. Said this place is abandoned years ago.
Now she's not silent.
Yeah.
That was your job.
Oh, shut up.
Finished it. Quickly. See to the combat.
You want a piece of me? What the hell was that? Did I still cut his head off? Alright, I'll take it. Hey, how does he have a gun? He's never used a gun against me. Okay, I just freaking... Alright, well, I gotta let myself die again, because I think I just accidentally, dismantled, like, a rare or an epic. Ah, man. God damn it! Ah! Oh, that angers me. I just freaking... Oh, I can't even remember what gun that was epic or rare that I just dismantled. Oh, my... Okay, I'm okay. Okay. One thing I don't like too about the character customized creation, so you really only have like freaking, for a standard color of hair, they got like freaking black, and they got like light black, and they got blonde and light blonde, but they don't got like brown or like dark brown or light brown. They got red, but they don't got brown or light brown. That's what I don't kind of understand too, is because like my hair, it's light brown, it's not like medium brown, and now I can't make a character that has like medium brown hair or light brown hair, because there's only really black, light black, blonde and light blonde, and then these red, greens, purples, and all these other colors. So it's like, why wouldn't you actually have like at least brown? Because like usually people's hair colors either come, if you want to make just a standard looking character, come in black, blonde, and brown. So yeah, you only have really black and blonde, and then all these purple, reds, greens, and so forth, but you don't have brown hair, like at least dark or light brown hair. So I don't understand that too. It's because now if I want to make a character that somewhat I feel resembles me, I can't even put in the freaking light brown hair or dark brown hair, because there's no option for light brown or dark brown. There's only freaking black, light black, what was it? Blonde or light brown, blonde or light blonde. So that's kind of fucking stupid that they don't have like a brown or a light brown color. Because now, like, because this character here, I wanted to kind of like be like more me, but like I don't have light brown or dark brown, so I'm stuck either going really blonde, different shades of blonde, or different shades of black. But like, now don't really feel like I can make this character really resemble me is because, like, even though I got a good amount of, like, straw structures, eye structures, ear structures, mouth structures, nose structures, like, for some reason, you know, and they only added really different shades of blonde and black hair, but yet they didn't add different shades of brown. So I kind of find that kind of stupid too. And I know, like, they were saying that there was stuff in this game they wanted to add in, but all of a sudden they chose, like, during development not to add these extra content in game. The reason why is because they're like, we just didn't want to make the game too big. But really what it is because of the amount of pressure that they had, I think they just didn't have the time to actually add more of that stuff, and they wanted to add in that they decided not to take in, put in the game. So that's kind of disappointing too. And I know specifically they said they just pretty much didn't want to make the story as long as The Witcher when I read the article, because, you know, I know some people felt like there was just so much in The Witcher when it came to the story that some people weren't able to finish the game because of the amount of stuff that were in detour, because of the amount of, well, just how, like, expansive and how big the story was, that they didn't want to have the same situation with this game, so they try and minimize the story and take things out for that reason. But I don't think that was the reason. I don't think it had to do with anything about the story being too big. Honestly, with how this game came out so buggy and glitchy and frame rate dropping so much, I think it's really they didn't have the time, because of the pressure they were under getting this game out there for sale. And I think it's because they just really didn't have the time to make have those things in these games when it came to story or whatever it was that's not in the game. Simply it's because it was simply because they just didn't have the time, not because they didn't want to make the game too big like The Witcher and not have people really be able to complete it. I said this to my brother. There was a lot of fishy things about the development of this game. You know, a lot of things that kind of really made me question, you know, the integrity of this game's development. But don't, don't buy the game because of what I'm saying. I still like the game. I still think this is a great game. I still think it's an enjoyable game. I think it'll be even a lot more fun and enjoyable once these bugs and glitches and frame rates gets resolved. And I think, you know, and if once those are resolved, if they do it before the end of the year, I would definitely say this game has been like the game of the year for me. I just don't think they'll be able to fix all the issues with this game before the end of the year, so I don't want to say this is the game of the year. That I would actually, what do you call that when you suggest somebody to win like an Oscar or nominate them to be game of the year? Like, I would want to, but that would be only if, you know, and they were able to fix the bugs and glitches by the end of the year. But I honestly don't think they have. I don't think they'll have the time. I think, like, for this game to run without the bugs and the glitches and the frame rate drops for every platform, I think it's definitely going to be fixed. And if it does get fixed, I'm hoping it will get fixed, is I don't think the fixes are not going to come only at the end of this year. I think they're going to come after the end of the year. Because I think, you know, expecting them to fix everything before the end of the year is just asking for too much. For that reason, I think stuff is only going to be fixed after the end of this year. Because I think really what's happened with this game, I think they're going to need as much time as they need, and a good amount of time to really resolve all the issues. And it does really help that, you know, in claims, there's been claims on YouTube that there's a chance that they might get sued, or that there's somebody that's trying to get into the works of getting them sued, or the company sued. So that doesn't really help matters also. And you know, if something like that does end up going through, then, you know, that's going to be, you know, time that's going to be taken away from, you know, fixing the problems of this game. So I don't see this game getting fixed by the end of this year. I can see it maybe getting fixed sometime within January or February, but honestly, I don't think they're really going to be able to resolve everything before the end of this year, because of the potential lawsuits that they might be going through which I say potential lawsuits that they might be going through, because it's just claimed from YouTube videos that I've seen that that might be the case, but that might not be the case, and that's kind of up in the air. And, you know, and that's going to take away from fixing the game, I think, if that does end up occurring. And if it doesn't end up occurring, I still don't think they'll be able to fix this with the, within the time frame of it being fixed until after this year's over.
fuck is that little cunt thing?
Down.
Right.
Hide away from him.
Fist the fucker! Blood up! Got the fucker! Yo, we a shit-kicking pack or what? Tear him to pieces!
Okay, I'm in.
I see. The camionette. Check it.
Right.
Camera and corridor. Avoid it.
It even worked.
Let's rip their fucking eyes out!
Be silent. Watch, not fuck them up. That was your job.
Oh shit. You won't hear now.
Quickly, see to the camionette. Alemma tries to cut you off.
Okay, I'm in.
I see. The camionette. Check it.
Right.
Camera at corridor. The body.
This is abandoned view.
Silent. Now it is not. Animals fix their eyes.
Oh shit. No one here now.
We don't put you out! Never! Here, my little baby genio. You're mine! For glory and fucking honor! Yo, we a shit-kicking pack or what? Ahoo!
The main ATM. Look for the camionette.
Yo, we a shit-kicking pack or what? Ahoo! Tear him to pieces!
I got the wrong gun. More tea.
Piss on this, man.
Down. Hide away from him.
Got the fucker! Hold your shit together!
Finished it. But be silent. Eyes open now.
What's going on?
You have company soon. Scan her right away.
That bad, huh?
She must have a weak spot.
Well, I got you here.
That one.
Okay.
Look at yeah, must rip him out. The Asian man tries to cut you off. There is a gate behind the campus. I will open it. Okay, now to the second floor, the cinema.
Come at me! Bring it! You like that?
Zed, what's going on?
Let me try to scramble you. Keep focused. I handle it. But I cannot hold it long. It's sitting somewhere with alcohol. Deal with her. Now the watcher.
I think she's had enough.
the data. Clear? You must first.
Proceed?
Whoa, hey, easy.
What did you do?
Well, now we can talk in private. Just severed the connection to the rest of Pacifica. Gives us a little time.
Okay, no more fucking tangents. Fess up. Who are you?
Had us no idea.
Not interested.
Do you know?
Got anything to back that claim? That the Voodoos want to set me up?
Wanna? They did it already. Soon as you handed over your link, slipped in the Spectre antivirus.
Talking as if he was there. He's working you. So obvious it hurts.
Ask for proof. Besides, I'd know.
That so? Then please take a look. Run a system diagnostic.
Fine. And? Nothing out of place. No trace of...
Do it again. Then cross-check the result against the first.
Identical, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not a real scan, it's a copy.
All right. What are you offering?
Clock's flipping, did?
Okay.
Can't believe...
Oh, mercy. Good luck.
Fan of westerns, huh?
Of course. They depict a simpler, better time. One thing hasn't changed, though. Good guys still carry badges.
What the fuck, V? You are off net. I lose your eyes.
Brigitte and the other guy. Are they back?
Who told? Yes, Mama B is awake.
Perfect. Because I gotta talk to her.
And what of Netwatch?
Taken care of.
Look for my people up front.
Non, Dieu détendeur. Qui est-ce? Depuis Placide. We are to take you to Placide.
Let's go.
you and the GIM. You were to hack the agent, not cut deal with him. You tell me, Rania. You say what happened. You say or I open you see with my own eye what worm crawling the down.
I fucking dare you.
I say, we must head under. I do not know what Netwatch plans, but they are not done.
You worried about agents? Then shoot him in the head. I do not know what they put in him. What corruption is in his system.
You don't know what is in there to begin with. How much it is worth.
I know. I scanned him. Only a normal filthy rhino.
Ale, menemunyo na kavoa. Come with me.
You know about the biochip, don't you?
If it is functional, we offer you good price for it.
Biochip's busted. That's why I'm here. Haven't found a single soul capable of getting this thing out of me without scrambling my brain. You commissioned the heist, so I figured you must know something. You've gotta.
How do you know all this? How did you find us?
Listen, can you help me or not?
Yes, of course, but not here. We will go to the crib, where you must give us access to the chip. Once we have the data we need, we will do our best to help you.
Then, after you. You guys sure seem to love this place. But honestly, you don't give off a strong religious vibe.
We left our gods on Haiti, yet we are strong here without them. This way.
So how come Placide didn't know about the biochip? He didn't recognize it in the scans.
Few of our people know about Kompeki Tower. But Placide, he is... your bête de bas.
Where are we going?
Soon you will see. The Watcher did not notice the biochip in you. Strange. Did you let him scan you?
Hmm? No. Why?
It would complicate our work.
This an old subway tunnel?
No, part of the transcontinental maglev system. When all states were connected. Like the net, it too crumbled after the war. Vieux et courant.
Tout le bagay pare. Nou ka komanse.
Bon. We take you into the cyberspace. No better place for you to interact with the construct.
Okay, hang on. I want to know what you need Silverhand for first.
We wish to contact Alt Cunningham. We know she and Silverhand were close.
Alt?
The relic which Arasaka held close. It is our only lead.
Alt Cunningham. Heard of her?
Oh. Where? From whom?
I'm going to have the stream here because I think once I go into this tub of ice that's over here, I think there's a sex scene with Johnny Silverhand and Alt Cunningham. So I'm gonna end stream here. That way I can watch that but not get in trouble from YouTube. That way my video doesn't get demonetized or taken down forcefully from YouTube, because I don't know the policies of YouTube. I believe you can't show nipples, and I think probably any kind of sexual things as well on YouTube. So I'm gonna end the stream here just because I don't want to get in shit from YouTube from anything sexual, because I just don't think like nipples are allowed or any kind of sexual things are allowed on YouTube, because then if you do all in music, copyright music as well, if I think you have anything on that, you either get your video demonetized or you get it forcibly taken down.